Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Maximum Guitar YouTube channel. My guest today is a phenomenal jazz musician who has created amazing albums like Live at Grillby's and Alola That Jazz. He has over 200,000 subscribers on YouTube. It is Insaneintherainmusic. How are you doing today, Carlos?
I'm feeling refreshed.
Good. Yeah, you were telling me you got that tea. You got the tea ready to go.
This is Zen something made by Tazo. It's a green tea, and I drink it every morning and sometimes in the afternoon, like right now.
Excellent. Are you much of a tea drinker?
I was thinking about saying this before, but I am to tea as Jules is to coffee. Not quite.
Okay.
But like, I don't know. I like tea a lot.
Tea's good.
Jules likes coffee more.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jules likes coffee probably more than any human likes anything else on this planet.
Yeah, maybe he likes it more than he likes water because he needs it more than water to survive.
Yeah, it's true. So why don't you go ahead and tell everyone a little bit about what it is you do here on YouTube?
Certainly. Well, as Max said before, my channel name is Insaneintherainmusic, and I create video game jazz covers on the internet. So I take video game songs and rearrange them to sound like jazz, to sound like they were played by a professional jazz group, but with me playing pretty much everything. That's how I've done it in the past. Sometimes I'll have collaborators on who lend their talents to create expanded ensembles or just better music. But most of the time it's just me taking songs that I really like, sometimes songs that other people like, and rearranging them to sound like jazz and performing them and releasing them for people.
Very, very cool. So the first segment we normally have on this show is what I will have the previous interviewer do is ask one question to whoever the next interviewee will be. So my last interview was with Toxic X Eternity.
Oh, okay.
And cool. The thing is, I had not yet scheduled an interview, so he was just asking this general question. I think it's fitting that it would be the question that Jack asks to you is if you were Sans from Undertale for a day, what would you do?
If I were Sans Undertale,
yeah,
for a day, I don't know. I mean, if I was anybody else other than myself, I would just do like the wildest thing you could imagine because there would be no consequence. Assuming it's not like the you die in the video game, you die in real life kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, walk up to people and say puns.
Sure.
I don't know.
Just do Sans things.
That could be me. That could be me normally, But yeah. I guess that's something that Sans is known for. Oh, I would play the trombone a lot because I know Sans plays the trombone.
Yeah, there you go.
It would be a shortcut to getting better at the trombone.
Yeah, I've always wondered how, I mean, it's Undertale, and it's like magic and goofiness, but like, Sans doesn't have lungs or lips, so how does he play the trombone?
That's an excellent question. What does he buzz to make the trombone sound?
It's magic, dude. Monster magic. So, another thing we do on this show is I normally will have the guest choose a screensaver, because sort of what I'm going for is like a quad screen layout. And normally one of the screens will be left blank for whatever you want. So let me know, what do you want to see for the next hour and a half while we talk in one of the corners? It could be anything you want.
I would say rain falling on a window, because I think that's very brand appropriate.
All right. I can get that. I can make that happen. I've got powers that will make that happen. So let's go ahead and sort of get into the meat of the interview. I've got sort of a bunch of set questions here that I'm going to ask you, which will then be followed by a lightning round and then some fan questions. We've got quite a few fan questions, which I'm very, very excited for because we got quite a few of them. So let's go ahead.
Twitter.
Yeah, thank you, Twitter. So the first question here, I saw you on Twitter talking about the possibility of there being an Insane in the Train album, which I think is a fantastic idea. Like, you got so much potential there. You got Thomas the Tank Engine, you got Spirit tracks, right? You got like classics like Night Train, Like, is that something that was a joke, or do you actually foresee that being a possibility?
It was really meant as a joke.
Okay.
But now that you're talking about it more, I could see. I mean, I could see it as a reason to just do like a variety album.
Sure.
With obviously Thomas the Tank Engine, some Spirit Tracks music, Night Train.
Yeah,
Wait,
yeah.
no, no. I'm thinking of Night Fever. Sorry, that's a different song. There's some other train songs.
Like, Take the A Train is...
John, Take the A Train, John Coltrane.
Oh, okay,
Blue
that's...
Train.
No. John Coltrane, dude.
I think that's it could happen if there was ever a reason I needed to release an album that was just a bunch of random train associated songs just to fit the pun. Insane on the Train would not be a bad name.
Yeah, there you go. Insane the Train coming 2019. It's been confirmed, guys.
No, it's
So you're in Boston right now, right? So
correct.
Let me know, how's Berkeley treating you? How are things going at Berkeley?
Berkeley is very cool. It is a very interesting place. I've met a lot of really interesting people and learned a lot of interesting things about music. And I'm really enjoying my time here. I think I think I made the right decision in choosing to go to this particular school. And it's super cool that some people have come to Berkeley because they knew about me from YouTube.
Wow.
Which is just, I'm so honored to have that be the case as to why someone would choose to go to a school. Just today, I attended at Berkeley, you're required to be in an ensemble for 4 semesters, and the ensembles can range anything from like jazz bands, jazz combos. Some jazz combos are like focused on a specific type of music or a music by a specific composer, and some are just general ensembles. So a couple of my friends are in this general ensemble, and I went to their recital today because they were performing my arrangement of Pollyanna.
Wow, nice.
It was slightly abridged, but they had a vocalist and a band and everything, and they were playing it. And to me, that is one of the biggest honors possible.
Man,
just crazy.
Yeah, that is super duper cool. So while you've been at college, can you tell me what are the top 3 most important things that you've learned? Not necessarily related to music, but just in general, what are the 3 most important things you've learned in college?
Okay, top 3 college things.
Yeah.
So do these things need to be like the things that I learned from going to college, or things that I learned while I was at college?
Things that you learned while in college that you would have only learned in the context of being in college, whether it was on campus or in class or not.
Okay. I would say that the biggest thing is that, well, number one is that life, or just everything is about dealing with people in some way.
Sure.
That regardless of how good you are at music, or good you are at anything, the only way that you're going to turn that skill into something that is beneficial to the world is to interact with other people and use your skill in a positive way. For example, I think that putting videos on YouTube and interacting with people in the comments section is a way of interacting with other people and bringing good things to the world. And in the context of music school, that's arisen in terms of like playing in other people's ensemble recordings. Like, even if it's not, it's not like the biggest gig you'll ever have, but it's important to do because you'll get to meet people during the process, and some of these people you can meet during the process will, end up becoming people that you'll work with a lot in the future. And those connections you almost never see in the moment while you're doing it. But by putting in the time and meeting these people and treating everybody you meet with some degree of respect, then you're setting yourself up for pretty decent chances of success, I'd say. So that's number 1.
Okay, there you go. Number 1.
Okay, number two is that improvement doesn't happen fast. Improvement is best. I mean, the best way I can visualize improving in a certain skill is the 1% rule or something like that. It's something I read in a book. The book is called Atomic Habits. I forget the author's name. But one thing they mentioned is that there's a very strong power in compounding interest, which is like if something increases by 1% every day. So for me personally, when I go to practice, I don't concern myself too much with like, this has to be the best practice session ever. I have to get so much done. It's more just like, I need to improve at one thing, 1%. And that
Sure.
takes so much stress out of, so much stress off me personally. And it allows me to have fun, you know, because that doing something that's only like a 1% difference is something you can still definitely do when you're having fun. And it makes practicing more sustainable, I think. Because in the past I've had troubles motivating myself to go into the practice room. Maybe because I didn't have a clear goal in mind. But once I started thinking about it in terms of like just getting a little bit better, then I was just showing up to the practice room more. I made it a habit, and it was, you know, I just felt better about the music I was making.
Sure. You have one more fact for us? One more fact with Insane
I don't know
in
if I can pull one out.
Well, something goofy, maybe.
Something goofy?
Maybe, if you learn something that's kind of trivial and funny.
Huh. Always run, or when you see a crosswalk and the crosswalk is about to change from the red hand with a couple numbers of it next to it to the red hand telling you to stop. Unless there's like 1 second left, you always go for it.
Okay, yeah.
Because in my walks to school, there's this one particular light that's just awful. Particularly my walk back home from school. And so I have trained myself to like run across like a highway. It's not really a highway, but it's like in between. It's like you know, the cars are going like maybe 30, 35 miles an hour.
Okay,
to like find the brakes in the cars and run.
Just go for it.
And to me, I think that could be expanded as a metaphor for like taking advantage of opportunities, but strictly for just getting around places, just go for it. If you know, be safe, but also go for it.
Be safe out there, kids. So what would you say your favorite class you've taken at Berkeley is thus far in your college career?
Japanese.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Is there any particular reason for that, like, as opposed to a music class?
Well, I mean, I could. It's maybe not my most influential class musically. I mean, it's definitely not my most influential class musically, but in terms of just making my life better and making me happier day to day, just being in that class has really, really helped me.
Sure.
Because I mean, learning a language is challenging, but it's also, if you're doing it with the right people and you have the right teacher, it can be so much fun, and it is such a good break from all the music, because otherwise my schedule is like music 24/7. And Japanese class is like a time where like, okay, you're not going to do any of that. Let's do something that's really interesting to you. And now I can like, you know, during the Nintendo Directs, I can like understand like a couple of words that Miyamoto says, or whoever's on the screen.
Yeah, sure.
And it's kind of cool. It's been a good experience for me, and I would highly recommend not just Japanese, but doing something completely opposite from what you're doing right now, just to, you know, enrich your worldview on things.
Yeah, sure. So while you are down in Berkeley, you do have sort of a recording setup. What is your recording setup like right now compared to what it is at home? Like, is it better? Is it a little more inconvenient to record when you're at school, or what's up with that?
I would say it's significantly more inconvenient, and that's been one of the biggest problems that I've had to deal with this semester. Most other, you know, YouTubers I know, or people who regularly put out stuff, have their own like space where they can play and make as much noise as they want, pretty much. And I've come to realize how fortunate that is to have, because in my situation, my apartment isn't very. I mean, the walls aren't super thick. Saxophone's a very loud instrument, so if I were to record in here, I'm sure it would upset so many neighbors. So my solution to that last year was to use practice rooms, because the dorm building I was in had practice rooms in its basement. So it was pretty easy to, you know, put some stuff in a suitcase, bring the suitcase down there, and record a bunch of stuff that way.
Okay.
Now I don't live in the dorms, so I don't have access to those practice rooms. And the practice rooms I can go to, most of the ones that are like accessible to non non-residents or like non-on-campus residents at Berkeley are either pretty small, inconvenient to get to, or are also really roomy in terms of like the acoustics of the room, so they wouldn't really be suitable for recording in. Which I understand. They're not trying to make rooms that are studio level. They're just trying to make spaces where somebody can go in and play a loud note and it won't bother anybody.
Yeah.
So one thing I have done just this past weekend was that I booked some studio time at a studio that was nearby. So I worked with one of my friends who's also he's a recording engineer here, and we recorded like over. I mean, I was playing saxophone for like 3.5 hours of just recording for like I think 7 videos. Not all were mine. Some were like collaborations, but just like bam, 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 recording through all of that. And it was difficult just recording that much. And it really made me realize how lucky I am to have, parents at home who can, who are willing to deal with me playing loud all the time. Or just and just having like a house in general. That's something, if I could if there was one thing I had to name about my living situation that that I'm not really a big fan of, it's probably that recording isn't super easy or accessible right now.
Yeah, sure. So we've been talking a little bit about college. Let's pull it back to high school, which is actually where I met you for the first time, because we were both...
I remember that.
Yeah, we were both in our high school jazz bands, respectively. We're from different high schools, and I can't remember exactly what the gig was that we ended up meeting at. I can't remember it. I don't know.
It was a jazz festival at Mount Si High School.
Right. Okay, yeah, I remember that. And
that's what it was.
I was going there. I'm just like, yeah, I'm ready to play my pieces. I was playing guitar and bass for my jazz band that year, and then I just saw Carlos. I'm like, oh, you're the one guy. And then you were like, yeah, you're the one guy. I mean, that was pretty much the conversation.
Wait, who saw who first? I don't remember that situation.
I saw you, and I'm like, you're Carlos, right? And you're like, oh yeah, you're that one guy. And then we just talked for a little bit, and then
did I actually say you're that one guy?
I believe you did say you're that one guy or something like that.
I would like to think that I would have. I'm pretty sure I remembered who you were. Maybe I just didn't say your username or something like that.
Maybe. I don't remember exactly what the conversation was, because that was 3 years ago, dude.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Yeah. So we haven't really talked about that. What was your high school jazz band experience like? What stuff did you learn there?
Well, my high school jazz band experience was very influential for me. I mean, of course it was. I mean, it was my school. I was there for 4 years.
Yeah.
But my director was very he pushed me a lot. He pushed a lot of students who he could tell were I guess good at their instruments or had some promise. And probably the biggest thing that I did in high school was learn how to transcribe solos. I don't remember exactly how I got started on my first one or what led to it. But I noticed a significant improvement in my ability to improvise solos or have a good sound or sound like I knew what I was doing once I had started transcribing. For the listeners who aren't aware, transcribing is where you listen to something and then write it down in sheet music form. Some people transcribe by just listening to something and then memorizing it and then playing it back without ever writing sheet music. That's your own choice. I personally like to write it down, so years later I can just think, oh, I think I did that transcription a couple years ago, then search for it on my computer and pull it up. I did it this morning. It was pretty fun.
Wow, nice. So we've both grown up in Seattle, so I want to know what experience you've had with the music scene here. Not necessarily specifically to jazz, but what do you think of the music scene here in Seattle? What do you know about it?
I don't think personally I'm super involved in the local music scene of Seattle. I mean, I know a lot of, I guess in the surrounding area, I'm including the cities around Seattle. I mean, of course, Jazz Alley is like the club.
Sure.
And I know a lot of the people just by association and having known them in high school or have met them at a couple of jam sessions that I've gone to. But because of the nature of the type of thing I do, where I'm an internet video game jazz guy, I don't really feel tied to any particular city, which is kind of nice. in that by living in Boston right now, other than my living situation, I don't feel like I'm sacrificing anything in terms of like business partnerships or anything like that, just by living somewhere else, which is nice to have, and it's nice to have that freedom. Um, from what I know of the Seattle jazz scene, the people in it are pretty nice.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of good players, and I've had a lot of fun doing the things that I've done in terms of live events. I would like to do more, probably when I get out of college and um, get the YouTube thing more under control than it is right now, because things are a little crazy.
Wow. Yeah, no, definitely. It's like I've always felt like being here in Seattle, especially being a guitarist, there's like a legacy you have to live up to, because it's like,
certainly.
like, Kurt Cobain is from here. I don't want to say how close, but Jimi Hendrix's grave is very close to where I live. I visited a few times.
You know who else is from Seattle?
Who else?
Kenny G.
Yeah, there you go, Kenny G, dude. Kenny G. What a legacy to live up to.
Kenny G is great. I don't think people give him that much flack.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people give Kenny G crap, but he's good. I personally think he's all right.
Kenny Gorlick.
Sure. Is that really his last name? I had no idea. Wow. So we do know that you are a musician, yes, but you are specifically, or at least you classify yourself as a jazz musician. So can you tell us a little bit about how you first got exposed to jazz?
So my first exposure to jazz came in middle school, where my director was hosting or had this thing called Jazz Club that would meet after school on Fridays for about an hour, and we would play through just some easy jazz tunes. At the very beginning of middle school, I was playing clarinet, so I was reading for the first little bit. I was reading the saxophone parts just on a clarinet because I figured out how to transpose them.
Cool.
At the time, I guess I was good at that. And then after a while, I joined the school's jazz band, and my director said that he needed someone to play bari sax. And I told my dad about it, and he was like, "Man, you should play that thing," because I remember bari sax sounds great or something like that. I didn't really know what it was at the time.
Okay.
And I think the first time I saw it was like, oh crap, this thing is big. And there are some pictures I put of me on the internet holding the thing. And I remember like my right hand like could not stretch far enough to like reach the keys, the pinky keys at the bottom. My mom thought it was super cute. But that was my first time playing jazz saxophone specifically. I had played alto saxophone for a few months before that. But bari sax was my first one. And then I ended up playing tenor in high school.
Nice. That's really cool. So if there's anyone who's watching who wants to get into jazz, like right now, is there any artist or an album that you'd recommend they listen to get into jazz right now?
So the answer that everybody's expecting is kind of Blue by Miles Davis, which is like the age-old, like best-selling jazz album of all time. And it's a great example of what jazz is, at least in like it's like the heart of the American tradition of jazz, of what it is. Because it has so many great, hugely influential players on it. And a lot of the songs are super accessible. There's nothing too complex to understand. Like Freddie Freeloader is, I think like there's nothing faster than a quarter note in that melody. It's such a good, it's a good introduction. So What? I don't remember if Green, All Blues, things like that on that album are so. If you're just wondering what jazz is and you're trying to understand like how the music works, like how they have an intro, they play the head, and they have solos, and they have the head out, how that all works, that's a good place to start. For if you're interested in my music, which is like I would say isn't necessarily the same as Miles Davis's jazz, because one of the things I like best about jazz is that as a genre it is so flexible. Like you can do some weird stuff and still call it jazz, and people will still believe you.
Yeah.
As long as you have the right instruments and there's an improvisation in it somewhere. But I would recommend Snarky Puppy, which isn't necessarily a jazz band, but is just a collective of great musicians who make music that is groovy and has some jazz-like elements. And if you're looking for something that's a little more toned down than Snarky Puppy, but still has like somewhere in the middle of Miles Davis's Kind of Blue and Snarky Puppy, I would recommend the band The Yellow Jackets.
Okay.
They're another favorite band of mine. Their lead saxophone player Bob Mincer is one of my tenor saxophone playing idols. Their music is it's like fusion jazz, but not with any of mostly without a lot of electronics. Their music is, at least in recent years, has become more acoustic and is still definitely palatable and doesn't have a lot of weird sounds to it, but still is, at least for me, is complex enough to where it doesn't sound super simple and doesn't get repetitive.
All right. So, why do you think it is that you specifically chose to become a jazz musician and not any other kind of musician? Was it just because of it was what you were doing, or was there more to it than that?
I mean, circumstance was a large part of it. Just because I was playing in jazz band in high school and I was playing in jazz club in middle school at the time when I started trying out this whole YouTube thing. In fact, I don't remember when you first started, when I first met you in terms of YouTube years, but in the first year and a half of my channel, I wasn't really making jazz videos per se. I was just making piano covers.
Sure. Yeah.
And in fact, I wasn't playing very much saxophone because I didn't think my saxophone tone sounded very good, and I didn't want to put that on the internet.
Nice.
So I mean, it's come a long way since then, and I think I guess I just stumbled into jazz somehow on YouTube. I mean, video game jazz covers were not the intent of when I created my YouTube channel. It was just music.
Yeah.
I didn't know exactly what. But it worked out, and I think the reason I've stuck with it is just I really like the level of freedom you get as a jazz musician, because you basically in the form of in the tradition of Miles Davis with the head and solos and stuff like that, you have so much freedom to do whatever you want and to do whatever you want, react to people in real time, improvise, comp, do harmonic substitutions. All of this stuff is left up to you, and you have so much freedom to do whatever you want. I mean, of course, within musical boundaries, if it's tasteful, then you should do it. But I don't think that other styles of music necessarily have that degree of freedom. Not to say that classical music is, stuck up or stale or anything like that, because I love especially classical saxophone. I think that stuff sounds amazing, and I have so much respect for people who play that type of music all the time. But for me personally, I think that jazz is just the most free way that I can express myself and do the crazy types of things I like to do with music and change things and interpolate things in my own way while having people still recognize it.
Yeah, I see. So a very good chunk of video game musicians do metal music. So what are your sort of thoughts on metal music in comparison to jazz?
Sorry, there was a motorcycle in the back.
Yeah, there's a motorcycle.
I've definitely gained more of an appreciation for metal over the years, just because of the people I've met who do that primarily. I think before I really knew people like Jules or Jack or Rich, then or Ro, I should say Ro. He was one of the first people I met who did video game metal. I just kind of wrote off metal as loud screaming guitar music.
Yeah.
I didn't understand all the nuances that come with the genre, and I totally understand that people are like that. Because when you see something unfamiliar, you want to categorize it in context of things that you already know. So people who may not understand jazz will just think it's saxophone player plays random notes and plays the lick. That's what jazz is. But once you look deeper, that's not what it is at all.
Yeah.
And I think metal has it's such a cool genre. As for why, why there are so many metal musicians, probably because some of the oldest, oldest video game musicians on YouTube were metal guitarists like CS
Yeah.
Guitar 89, Artificial Fear. Some of those people who really started doing what the rest of us, or not, I guess what the people right now are doing. They started off as metal guitarists. Some of the other foundational people I can think of are like Kyle Landry, who basically popularized piano covers. David Ramos for Ocarina, and just he might have even started like the whole playing video game music things on your instrument kind of thing.
Yeah.
And for myself to be part of the community of jazz rangers that has grown up, like people like Eric L, Slad JKF, Tyler Jenkins, people like that who are creating not strictly jazz, but like that kind of thing. It's been really cool to see that like envelop and how people see what's possible and then think I could do that and then make something like that themselves.
Yeah. So what would you say your favorite music genre besides jazz is, if jazz is even your favorite music genre, which I'm assuming is yes.
Yeah, it is. I really like disco Motown stuff, like
Okay.
old Michael Jackson and old Stevie Wonder. That stuff, it's not actually that far away from jazz, really. It still has a lot of the harmonic complexity that jazz has, which is one of the things I like most about it. But it has more of, like a straight ahead groove that is more easily experienced in the body in terms of like dancing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I also really like bluegrass.
Oh yeah.
I don't, because some of the stuff that bluegrass musicians play is just crazy.
Yeah.
I don't understand how they do it. It's such a technically demanding genre for fast songs, more so than I think jazz is. I would say I definitely have an appreciation for all types of music, but probably like funk, Motown, and bluegrass are some of my other favorites.
All right. Very, very cool. So I'm going to make you choose here. Where do you prefer living? Do you prefer living in Seattle or Boston?
Seattle.
Seattle. All right.
Definitely.
Do you have a reason for that? Or is it just because?
Well, I would say, I'm like living in my, my parents' house back in Seattle. I have access to record things easier. I have a decent space there. As for like the place itself, I think that I really like the fact that when you land in Seattle on a plane, that you can see trees like everywhere.
Yeah.
And the nature is just so nice. And
it's fantastic.
Well, yeah. And when I go out for like walks or runs in the morning, it's just, there's like a feeling that I get over there that is just not quite the same anywhere else I've been. Except for maybe Japan. Japan is really cool.
Yeah, Japan.
But man, the nature and just the fact that like you can see, like, have you, like, sometimes when I drive out to North Bend, the route I take goes past Mount Si, and on like at the right time of the day, just like seeing like a giant mountain like that, just like right next to you with the sun at the right angle is like, oh my God, that's crazy. I can't believe that exists, and then it's only like half an hour away from where I started.
Exactly. I live, like, if I have a window right here, and if I were to look at it and sort of like look to the right occasionally, if there's not a lot of clouds, I can see Mount Rainier. And I'm still confused as to whether you pronounce it Mount Rainier or Mount Rainer, because I was talking to Jules about it when he was visiting Seattle at Danny Baranowski's house, and he called it Mount Rainer, and I'm like, well, you're not from here, so I'm going to assume you're pronouncing it wrong, but I'm like,
it's Rainier.
Yeah, it's Rainier.
Definitely Rainier.
Yeah. But man, the nature here is just fantastic. It's a splendorous state we live in. Yeah.
Splendorous.
That's the word. Yeah. All right. So, can you tell me, I'm going to try and keep up with you here. What is the most interesting music theory concept that you've learned this year?
I would say the concept of harmonic darkness versus brightness.
Okay.
So this is one of the craziest things. I mean, a lot of things in music theory are like they're all connected to each other in some way. And music theory is very, very math based, and I'm a really like mathy person. I really like math, So it's like such a perfect marriage of two worlds for me, even though like, music theory is music, but you don't have to know music theory to know music. Anyway, so there are 7 modes in the Western music tradition, which are Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, and Locrian.
Yeah.
And all those, they're basically all scales that are variations on major and minor scales.
Yeah.
And you can sort them in orders of harmonic darkness and brightness, which is really cool. So Lydian is the most bright scale, while Locrian is the darkest scale, or I guess mode. The reason being, if you start, let's talk about C Lydian and C Locrian. If you start on the note C and you go up entirely in perfect fifths, you get all the notes. You go from C, D, G, A, E, B, F sharp. You get all the notes in a C Lydian scale.
Okay. Yeah.
And anybody who knows any music theory can tell you that the perfect fifth sounds, open and pleasing.
Yeah.
Conversely, if you stack perfect fourths all the way up, C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, F sharp, you get all the notes in C Locrian.
Okay.
Which is really, really interesting. Because the fourth, it's called a perfect fourth, but it doesn't have the same open or bright feeling that I think a perfect fifth has. The perfect fourth is a little more mysterious.
Yeah.
A little more ambiguous. So it's really interesting that, you can build these modes this way. And if you're on a continuum of brightness from Lydian to Locrian, the way you get there is you just change one pitch. So, for example, the difference between C Lydian and C Ionian is that the C Lydian has C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C. You just take the F sharp, move it down a half step to be C Ionian. Now, the cool thing about where the stacking fifths theory comes back in again is if you stack fifths, and then at the very last one, you go to a tritone, you have C, G, D, A, E, B, F natural, then you get Ionian. And if you keep lowering that top note by a half step, you move from Ionian to Mixolydian to Dorian to Aeolian, Phrygian, Locrian, which is really cool. And I've used that technique in like arranging, where I have like a chord pedal, and then I'll just pick like, okay, I'm going to play a chord that's based on the Lydian scale, then Ionian, then Mixolydian, Dorian, and just keep going darker and darker, and then like shift bright, shift dark. It's a concept that Jacob Collier's talked a lot about, and one of his concepts that I think is actually that makes you can understand it without a whole lot of deep digging, and I think it's just really cool and opens so much possibility, and it's another way of thinking about music. Yeah. Hey, did you understand all that?
Yeah, no, I actually understand that a lot better than I thought I would. It's really interesting how a lot of these scales or modes that we learn are very easily connected through different sort of ways of thinking.
Yeah, and that's one of the greatest things about music theory is that everything, as I said before, everything is so intertwined that these concepts that seem totally disparate to someone who's just learning it are often just the same thing.
Yeah.
Just expressed differently, or the same thing said in a different way to be useful to a different situation. But in reality, it all comes back down to the harmonic series, which is like the physical or like nature's music theory, or the way that music works naturally in the world, like physically.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's cool stuff. So can you tell me, how many hours a day do you practice?
Well, sometimes 0.
Okay.
Never more than 2. I would say on an average day, probably about 1 to 1.5.
Really?
Yeah, I mean that's all I have time to do. So my routine around that is usually after I get up, shower, and have breakfast and stuff, and then I'll leave my apartment and go to one of the practice rooms I can get to at Berkeley, and usually my practice is like just like an hour to an hour and a half. That's about it. I do that pretty much every day. sometimes it's on different instruments. Like lately, I've been working on flute, and so sometimes I'll practice on flute, sometimes I'll practice on saxophone, and the things I practice vary from day to day. I don't have really like a set, um, like a super rigid what I need to work on. I have some general things I can look to, but nothing super set. Um, I've never really been one to have like those 8 hour long practice days. I can't say I've ever done that. I think for me, the thing that I don't, I guess I don't know, I don't like I like exploring musically, but that might not necessarily come on the instrument. Like I like exploring musically in terms of writing arrangements where I can um, like play around with like organizing things in a new way, or transcribing where I can sit down and listen to something and try and figure it out harmonically, which is still, a great developmental tool for any musician. It's just not necessarily on the tenor saxophone or whatever instrument you're practicing. There are definitely ways to develop that aren't just practicing.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. It makes me feel a little less bad because one of my teachers this quarter, which I'm on vacation right now, which I'm very thankful for because I'm a student at the University of Washington, and it's stressful. It's stressful. But one of my teachers was like, if you're not practicing 3 hours a day, you're basically not improving. And I'm just like, that sounds a little extreme.
That's wrong.
Yeah.
That's just actually wrong.
So, the things happened, and I was just like, man, I just can't keep up with this, and I felt bad, but, I've talked to people about it, and now, hearing you say it, who is another music student, it's like, yeah, maybe 3 hours is a bit too much.
I mean, I honestly don't. The only reason I know how long it is because I've been experimenting with time tracking, where I have this app where I like say what I'm doing and it like runs a timer, and I don't track everything, just like YouTube work and practicing. That's basically it. But I don't I think quantifying how good your practice is by how long you spent doing it, I think is a terrible way of doing it. Because I mean, you could just like go in the practice room and play the C major scale for 3 hours, and and like, how is that compared to going in the practice room for like an hour and learning a new improvisation technique, or like learning a new concept that changes everything about how you play? That has so much more impact than being in the practice room for 3 hours playing the C major scale. I mean, so I think a lot of people do that just to show off, just to say how long I have the mental strength to make it through this much practicing. Like, I mean, I don't care.
It's like, it's a lot about the quality of the practice more than the amount of time. Like, large amounts of time practicing can be good, but only if you utilize that amount of practice time to get good quality practice on concepts that you're interested in learning. Yeah.
Correct. And I think it is very hard to do that. I think it is much easier to have a quality short practice and repeat that multiple times a week, rather than having just a couple of long, I need to get this done kind of things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because that just doesn't seem fun to me. And to me, that seems like a way of leading yourself into burnout, or like becoming like stretching yourself too far on something.
Yeah. So
like practicing and playing music should be fun.
Yes, exactly. Absolutely. That's why we do it, is because we love it. We don't. I feel like there are some musicians who do it because they want to be good. They want to like show off and like prove to the world, like, I have the skill, I have the mental capacity to handle this. But really, the essence of it is we're just having fun making cool sounds. That or at least to me, that is what music is. Is a and literally, it is an oral performance. That is the essence of music. Whether it's these really difficult, complicated pieces, or if it's just banging on a bucket, it's like it's all music.
Yeah.
So speaking of practice, obviously you do have good quality practice because you can play a lot of different instruments. And granted, it probably took a long time to amass this list of instruments that you can play very competently. How many instruments can you play in total? Like at a level where
I don't know. Like I don't I have no idea.
Really, you don't know?
No, I don't count them at all.
No.
I was I was actually thinking earlier today about making a video about what my process is for learning a new instrument.
Mm.
Just like that would be totally different from the stuff I usually do on YouTube, but I'm still ruminating over whether I would actually want to do it or how I would do it. Um, but I think I don't want to be the guy who says like, I can play 26 different instruments and that means I'm really cool. No,
Sure.
like I think you should have a purpose for learning each instrument. Like for me with flute, one it was to like expand my woodwind doubling repertoire. So
Mm.
if I'm playing in a big band and there's a part that has a flute part, like a tenor sax and flute at the same time, because that's actually pretty common, then I can do it. And I also want like an extra woodwind color to be able to use in my videos, which has been very helpful.
Mm.
And I wouldn't learn an instrument just to like add to my collection, like my add to my total, bring it up by one, because that seems like a really, hollow or like just not like a superficial thing to do.
Sure.
I don't count them because I don't have any reason to tell anybody how much I play. I just play like having different ways of expressing music.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. I mean, really, like, it's sort of hard classifying, getting down to the nitty gritty stuff of like, oh, yeah, I can play all of these different types of percussive instruments when really all you're doing is, shaking a maraca. And then
Yeah.
really, you're right, is that they're just tools used to express a musical idea.
Yeah, and it also means like the definition of playing an instrument, right, is also up for grabs. Like,
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
where is the point where I can say I can play an instrument? Like if I take a trumpet, like I can't play the trumpet like at all.
Okay.
I mean, I've made some noises on it before, but if I take a trumpet and put it to my face and I buzz it and I make like and I get a sound out of it, does that mean I can play the trumpet? I wouldn't say so. You trying to leave?
Doing some stealth.
I wouldn't like. I don't think that makes me a trumpet player. And like, at what point after practicing do you become a player of that instrument? And I think you could. If I was of the school that like, man, I just want to have as many instruments. I want to say I can play as many instruments as possible. Then I would probably say, okay, I just need to be able to make a sound on as many instruments as possible.
Yeah.
Which is like useless for my purposes. Like,
Yeah.
for me, I want to be good enough at an instrument where I can use it in a video and not feel bad about it. Like,
Yeah,
I think
okay.
that this sounds like something I would listen to.
Sure.
It doesn't have to be amazing, but it has to sound good enough for my standard of quality to work in a Insane in the Rain video. And that's what I do.
Yeah. That reminds me of, I can't remember what interview it was, but it was an interview with Jack Black. And he was asked the question, how many instruments can you play?
Saxoboom.
He was asked, how many instruments can you play? And he said, well, if you define playing an instrument as being able to make sound with it, then I can play any instrument. I can play all instruments.
That's true.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you sort of two questions at the same time here. What was the first instrument that you took lessons with? And then what was the first instrument that you bought?
The first instrument that I took lessons on was piano. I took piano lessons, classical piano lessons, all throughout middle school, which were very helpful. And I look back on those times fondly, even though I don't really play classical piano. But having those abilities has been helpful. The first instrument that I bought with my own money, I'm going to exclude any like small percussion instrument.
Okay.
Because I probably bought like an egg shaker. But, like,
Nice.
okay, I'm also excluding the melodica.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely. That, to me, that doesn't count. I think it was my guitar that I used in some of my videos.
Really?
That was like the first thing I bought, first instrument that I think I bought with my own money. After that, I bought a bass.
Mm-hmm.
A bass, then... I think I went for like an instrumental purchase route after that, and then I recently acquired a Berry sax, which I didn't pay for all myself because those things are crazy. I had my family helped me with that, and I just bought a flute recently. That's probably like a couple days ago. I bought my own flute because I've been learning it and I wanted to put a capstone on this semester of learning flute.
Sure.
I got one for myself, and it felt really good.
Yeah. All right, so I've got a couple just sort of miscellaneous questions before we move on to the lightning round. And this next question would have been nice to ask while she was in the room, but how's Sab doing and how are things going?
Sab's doing well. I think she just finished up her school. She's got a couple things left to do, but otherwise, things are pretty fun. We do a stream on Friday nights together.
Yeah.
Usually, we in the past we've been playing Super Mario RPG and Earthbound. I think tonight. Oh, I just told everybody this is a Friday. Oops. Tonight we're going to be playing Smash and Earthbound as well.
Yeah.
It's been a good thing to spend some time together and work on, or like force us to play games, because
sure.
In the life of a hectic college student, there's unfortunately not as many opportunities to play games as we would like. Even though making video game cover songs is like our job.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to play video games to make the music.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to play. You have to know the music, but you don't have to actually be playing the game.
Yeah, exactly. I've seen you like posting about the stream. I haven't been able to tune in yet, but maybe I will soon. For those wondering, no, this did not come out on the day we recorded it, so the stream that he's mentioning has already happened.
It already happened.
Yeah.
You missed it. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. It's next time though. Tune in. Would you say that you have any sort of big projects planned for YouTube that are coming up anytime soon, or is it just sort of like working on covers and getting those out, like the one-off kind of covers that you've been doing?
I have 2 big projects coming up. Actually, 3 big projects coming up. 2 of which I don't know when will happen. One of which I know will happen, and it will be April, May of next year. April, May 2019.
All right, I see. Can you tell me... surprise! Can you tell me a little bit about the process of licensing your covers?
Yeah. So copyright is a thing.
Yeah.
Copyright's interesting. So the provision that our entire the entire existence of video game cover musicians relies on is called the mechanical license. The mechanical license was invented in like 1909. And I think it was originally meant to deal with like sheet music publishing or something like that, or publishing of, because like sound recordings weren't super huge back then. Back then there were, I think we were on, I don't know if wax cylinders were still being used or if it was just early records. But the mechanical license, the compulsory mechanical license states that like, if a song has been released in the United States, because I live in the U.S. and I'm subject to U.S. copyright law. If a song has been released in the U.S., then the person who created it cannot say no to somebody who wants to create their own version of it, as long as the proper statutory and mechanical license rate is paid to the original composer, which is what I use services like Sounddrop and DistroKid for. Those services have provided cover song licenses for me in the past, and you basically upload a song there. You put in the name of the original composer, which is thankfully accessible for most, a lot of video game soundtracks through the site vgmdb.net. I think it's a .net, which is like an incredible repository of, metadata for video game music, which is I'm so glad exists. And whoever runs that site, bless you. I don't know who you are, but you have such a wonderful site. Very helpful for myself and many others in our community, and that's basically that's pretty much like the process. It's not that complicated. I haven't really run into any big legal issues myself. I would like to avoid that as much as possible, and one thing I do think is that video game music is not represented enough in terms of like sheer metadata.
Yeah,
like I want to be able to find out who played like on a soundtrack. Like if I look at the Octopath Traveler soundtrack, I want to find, okay, who recorded this? What's the name of the second trumpet player on the Octopath Traveler soundtrack? I want to know that information, so I can look them up and find out what else they've done, and maybe I'm in the minority of that. Maybe I'm not. Maybe a lot of people are like that. But
I would certainly be interested in that.
Yeah, there's just not enough data, or there's not like a centralized place for that data. Some albums do have that. But I think the music industry in general is just suffering from a lack of a centralized database with all the little details you want to know about every song.
I feel like I feel like stuff like that should be like standardized. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, of course. Like if I listen to a jazz record, I don't want to just see the name of the lead saxophone player. Of course, I know who their name is. I want to know who everybody else is too. And it can be hard to find that stuff sometimes, unfortunately, and it results in people probably not getting paid what they deserve, and people, like young musicians trying to find out who these people are so they can study from them or study their recordings and attribute them properly, just don't have that information. Like I was trying to learn, I was transcribing this flute solo for my proficiency exam at Berkeley, and it took me such a long time to find out the name of the dang flute player. I had to like research in an interview with somebody who wasn't even the main artist on the album, find them, then like just dig through the interview, figure out the names that were mentioned in the interview, look all of them up, see which one could play flute, and it turned out to be that person. And it took me far too long. That should be much more standardized.
Sure. So, can you tell me about your biggest musical inspirations as far as artists go? So, jazz artists as well as artists who are based in doing YouTube videos.
Oh yeah. As for jazz artists, the names I would list: Michael Brecker, Bob Mincer, Ben Wendell, Joshua Redman, Bob Reynolds. Those five are probably my favorite saxophonists out there, tenor saxophonists specifically. And I like to think that my playing is like if you took all of them and put them into one, then that would be me.
Okay.
I mean that's what I'm trying to do, or that's what I'm aiming for with my playing. And maybe that list of top 5 will change over the next 10 years of my life. It probably will. But those musicians specifically have been excellent to learn from, specifically on jazz saxophone. As of like my contemporaries on YouTube, people that have guided me not just in making YouTube music videos, but like making videos as a whole. Of course, Family Jewels, Idris Source, some of my closest friends. They're just, they are examples of people who have been able to transform this fun little hobby into something that's basically their whole lives and their career, which is awesome. Other people I've known, members of Wowie Talk, Ro Poniganti, Terrace Music, Julia Henderson, Sab Irene.
You point to me as if they could see me.
Well,
they can hear you.
So she's over there. And I mean, there are so many other names, and if you're watching this and you didn't mention your name, I probably meant to mention you. There's just the video game music community on YouTube is just so wonderful. Everybody's so supportive, and it's just, I feel so lucky to be part of such an amazing group of people. As for people outside of video game music, who I also look to for inspiration, definitely the Runaway guys like Chugga Conroy, Nintendo Capri Sun, Proton John. They make some very entertaining stuff, and they just make such good stuff, and they have this integrity to them that I really appreciate. That they're not chasing, they're not like playing Fortnite 24/7. They're not chasing the most popular game. They're making stuff that they have a genuine interest in, and the audience will, and the audience just happens to enjoy it. That's remarkable. Who else would I name? Mal makes and Stephen plays. Stephen and Mal, good people. Somebody else. Oh, and 8-Bit Music Theory.
Oh yeah.
Good guy. Great videos. Adam Neely, 12 Tone, Rick Beato, what's her name? Amy Nolte. A lot of these like music edutubers, people like that. I really like them as well.
Yeah. It's actually funny you mentioned the Runaway guys, is because it's so weird to me that I met the Runaway guys before I had ever seen any of their videos.
Really?
I think you had left because it was the Friday of PAX this year. And I think you had left before their panel that night, but I don't think I've claimed this in a YouTube video yet. I might have mentioned it on social media, but I was one of the first contestants on their game show. I can't remember what the name of it was.
No, I was there.
You were there.
I was there. I saw you go up.
Really?
I was like, I remember when you were in line, I was looking at Jules, and Jules was like, "Oh my god,
Like,
it's Max."
what are the odds of that happening? You know what I mean?
That's so crazy.
Yeah, and
I mean, I was so happy for you when I saw you get picked.
yeah,
It's
I
so
mean,
funny.
it was complete random luck. You know, actually, I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. Is that when I walked in, I went with my entire family. So I walked in with 4 people, and the person who actually got called was my sister. But my sister has really bad anxiety, so she was just like, "I'm not gonna do this. You take this. I can't do this."
Man, so what you're telling me is that whole thing was a sham.
It was a sham, dude. It was a sham. I mean, I you know, that it's what happened. It's what happened. I'm just like, well, I got to do it now because it's like,
oh my god,
I got to take this opportunity.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
And then I got tripped up by fucking Payday, dude. Payday.
And that's what it was. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah, no, the community on YouTube is just insane. There's so many amazing creative people who inspire me every day.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why. I mean, right now, I don't know when this is going to go up, but one of the events I'm most looking forward to is MagFest, which is like the annual pilgrimage of so many video game musicians going to the same place and getting together and having a good time. Just one of the most magical things that happens every year. I'm so excited. I'm not
going this year, but I hope to attend MagFest at some point.
I would love to see you there at some point.
It seems incredibly fun.
It is. It really is.
So, on the topic of covers, can you tell me what your favorite part of making a YouTube video is?
Probably arranging, I would say. It's like the initial part of arranging where I get the idea for a song, then it starts churning in my head.
Yeah.
And then I start like sketching out things. That's the most exciting part, because that's, I think, at the point where my creative juices are like maximally flowing, where I have like all these ideas. Like, I don't even know what it looks like in my brain, but like when everything is flowing together and influences are coming in and songs are being formed and things are changing. It's just such an exciting part of the process.
Sure. What do you think the hardest part of making a YouTube video is?
What is the hardest part? Picking a song can be hard sometimes.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's hard to decide that. I mean, honestly, I would say making the next YouTube video.
Okay.
I mean, I don't mean, at least in my point, in my current like status of where I am in terms of making videos, like making one video isn't that bad if it's something I'm interested in. But making a lot of them over time is like, that's like the most valuable thing you can do, but it's also one of the hardest things you can do. Because people will still like, I check my YouTube comments pretty much like once a day. And I often get comments on older videos of mine.
Yeah.
And these old videos are still, they're still not necessarily generating as many, views or active engagement as ones that are just recently released, but they still play a part. They're still part of my giant collection. And the more videos you can release, the more chances that somebody will be looking for that song and then finds you. So I would say the hardest part is just keeping it up over time and having consistency.
Sure.
And that's something that having a schedule for me has been super beneficial for, because I have a rhythm that I can adhere to and hit every 2 weeks and put out a new piece of content.
Yeah, definitely. So if I'm not mistaken, for every single video that you do, you also write the sheet music for every part of that video, or every part of the composition or arrangement. So how much extra time does that normally take? Like, is it so ingrained in the process that you do that it doesn't feel like an extra step, or can it be sort of difficult sometimes?
It's actually, I mean, it is, that's how I arrange.
Okay.
Like it's integral to the process. I wouldn't, it's not like I would make it if I didn't have to. If I didn't have to make sheet music, then I wouldn't. In some cases, in some rare cases, I don't make sheet music, but that's not very often, just because I think it's the way I work best in terms of notating complex arrangement ideas, is using sheet music. And I feel like, I might as well just share it. I mean, I can't legally sell it without licensing it because there isn't a good way to do that yet. But it's part of the process, and so it doesn't really. It is. I think that is the most time-consuming part of the entire production cycle of a video on average, assuming the video isn't ridiculously complicated in terms of editing. But the sheet music, it's just integral to the process, so it doesn't really add any extra time necessarily.
Yeah, and you were talking about how one of the hardest things making a cover may be choosing a cover. So what are some strategies you employ when choosing what to cover next? Like, do you rely on like what's hot right now? Do you rely on I just want to hear a cover of this, so I'm going to do it? Like, what are the things that go through your mind?
Do something that you're personally interested in, something that you really care about, because making videos, like, it's not easy. Like, it may look easy because all you have to do is click on the thumbnail, and then you see this thing that's like 4 to 6 minutes long that somebody created, but you don't realize how many hours went into that. Because, like I mentioned, doing time tracking earlier, and I keep track of how long I spend on each particular video. So one of my recent videos, Field of Hopes and Dreams, took 18 and a half hours to make entirely, which is, it's like, that's about what I expected, but it is a lot of time. And if I were to spend 18 hours on something that I really didn't care about, or I wasn't really...
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, my screen just... My screen just went to like...
I vanished!
Yeah, you vanished for a second. But if I was to spend 18 hours on something I didn't really care about, I would probably like hate everything by the time I was done. So I would highly recommend working on stuff that you are personally passionate about. If it happens to be something that people will like in terms of things that will get views, then great. If it's not, equally great.
Sure. Yeah.
What's more important is that you can keep doing it over a long period of time, because a single viral video doesn't establish you as as part of a community. I think the reason that we're all here as video game musicians is just because we keep coming back to the same thing, and we're all in the same cycle of producing video game covers like regularly, and whether they go, how many views they get doesn't matter. It's just a matter of the fact that you're doing it and you're learning something, and your videos are getting better as you're doing it. And that's one of the most magical things about this community, is that we don't care how popular you are. I don't care about how many subscribers you have. If you make good music, then I'll listen to it, or I'll work with you. It doesn't really matter. Sure.
So I can't remember if it was a conversation that we had or if I heard you say it in like Wowie Talk, but you're Filipino, right?
Yes, half Filipino.
Okay. So I am also half I'm half Vietnamese, and I'm half, I guess you could just say American, because saying half white just sounds kind of lame. But
you could say white. We know what that means.
Yeah, we know. So are you half Filipino, half white?
Yes.
Okay. So are there any like Asian family traditions that you partake in?
I would say the Filipino Christmas party is something that happens.
Really?
Where like my mom will invite all her Filipino lady friends over. They'll bring their husbands.
Okay, sure.
Like, potluck. They have a potluck. They'll bring food. And then at some point, my mom would be like, "Carlos, go play the piano." So I'll play the piano and like do it to impress her friends or something like that. It happens every year, and it's. I guess that happens in multiple cultures, but specifically, I've noticed like there's a certain sound that a group of Filipino women have when they laugh. That's like a cackle. It's like a joyous cackle.
Sure.
That I've come to know and appreciate very much.
Yeah, I know that feeling of like, hey kid, go play this to impress all of your like distant relatives, because it's like I've got a Christmas party coming up, and generally what happens at my family get-togethers is because it's my mom's family that is here in Seattle. My dad's family. I should specify that my dad is white and that my mom is Vietnamese. But my dad's family is spread out all over the country, so I don't really get to see them a whole lot. But every year I go over to my aunt's house for Christmas, and it's just like anyone who has any kind of musical talent is asked, go play something. I'm gonna listen, and it's normally pretty entertaining.
That's a classic experience.
Yeah. So the last question I have here before we move on to the lightning round is, what games have you been playing recently?
Smash.
Yeah, Smash. A lot of
Smash. Definitely. I've been playing World of Light almost exclusively. It's pretty fun. It's a nice. I mean, I didn't think I would like it as much as I do, but it's just nice to play in short bursts, which is something that Nintendo has done a very good job of maintaining through across the games on the Switch, like all the moons in Mario Odyssey or the shrines in Breath of the Wild. But there are these little things that you can do that will get you a little bit closer to a goal, and they don't take that much time to do.
Yeah.
So Smash, Let's Go Pikachu. I've been playing that. Octopath Traveler, I haven't finished, but I've been playing on and off. Deltarune, I played that when it came out.
Yeah.
Other than that, not a whole lot. I mean, I've been playing Mario RPG and Earthbound on Twitch. Other than that, not a whole lot. There are some games I'd like to play, like Dark Souls for the Switch.
Yeah,
I've never played Dark Souls, and I really want to try it.
Oh, have you not started playing Dark Souls yet? Like, are you interested?
No, I've never played it before.
Yeah, I've talked to you about Dark Souls before. Like,
Yes, I definitely remember.
Yeah, there's arguably 5 games in the series, because you count the Dark Souls trilogy, and then there was Demon Souls and Bloodborne. I've played all of them.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, like, don't want to play the Dark Souls series because there's the whole, you're going to die over and over. It's going to be rage-inducing. It's really, really hard. Like, no casual gamers allowed. Absolutely not true. Like, you can pick up Dark Souls as your first game. And yes, it's frustrating, but almost all of the frustration that comes with Dark Souls games is the game not telling you how to play it. It's a lot of mechanics that you don't understand that are killing you, which all you have to do is, like, put on one piece of armor or take off one piece of armor or press a single button, and then suddenly the area that you thought was almost impossible becomes painfully easy like a minute later. So
that's interesting.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
And like, as far as Smash goes, I've been playing the shit out of Smash. And World of Light, I thought I would like it more than I did. I'm actually not super fond of World of Light. Okay. A lot of my favorite thing to do in Smash is to play fucking Final Destination, 3 stock, Fox only, no items, that stuff. You know, I am crazy about that.
You're one of those people.
I'm one of those people. And I've actually only ever played Melee once, which is, like, notorious for being the try-hard of the Smash series. But I think a lot of, like, I'm really, really enjoying Smash. I think the game itself is fantastic, and I would enjoy it more if I had more people to play with, because I play with my sister. And she's 12 years old, but it's awesome because she's, like, good enough to kick my ass. So it's actually, awesome. It's really competitive. And I played her like 300 times, so it's like, Smash is a really good...
Yeah.
Despite it being considered a competitive video game, it's a great party game. Just have friends over, play some Smash Bros.
I'm the same way with Sab. Like, Sab is a lot better at Smash than I am.
Oh, cool. All right, we're going to move on to the lightning round. So I'm going to ask you a bunch of...
Can I use the bathroom for a second before the lightning?
Yes. Bathroom break.
Back on the throne.
Back on the throne. All right, so lightning round. I'm going to ask you a bunch of very quick questions. Your goal is to answer them as succinctly and quickly as you possibly can. Are you ready?
Okay. Yes.
All right, here we go. What's the video you're most proud of?
Eterna Forest.
Okay. What's the instrument you like playing the least?
Guitar.
Okay. What's your favorite flavor of pie?
Apple.
What is a song that you want to cover but you're too afraid to attempt?
Dragon Roost Island.
What's your favorite color?
Blue.
Name a person you want to collab with that you haven't.
Adam Neely.
Are you subscribed to PewDiePie on YouTube?
No.
Do you like drinking coffee?
No.
Who is your main in Super Smash Brothers?
Well, I don't really have... Snake.
Okay. When was the last time you improved your Wii Music Speedrun PB?
Whenever I streamed it last.
Okay. What was your favorite? Not what was. What is your favorite flavor of jelly bean?
Lemon?
Okay. When it comes to jazz band musicians, who are the people or players you can always rely on?
Do you mean like instrument players?
Yes.
Or just like
Yeah, instrument players.
bass trombone,
Sure. Who are the people in a jazz band you can never rely
lead trumpet.
on? Nice. What is your favorite chord?
Major 7.
Okay. And finally, name a musical pet peeve that you have.
When someone plays something that sounds like the lick unintentionally, and people say, "Ha, you played the lick. That's funny."
Sure.
It's not that big of a pet peeve, but like,
Okay, it's just something.
It's just the melody. It's just the melody.
It's just a melody. All right, and then the final part of the interview, we have fan questions. So we are running a bit long. So let's see if we can get through.
Let's just pick
this.
a couple. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just picked a couple. Let me go to Twitter and pull them up.
Yeah. Do you want to just like go through a few of them?
Yeah, I'll pick a couple questions.
Okay.
Oh, let's see. I'm gonna start from the bottom.
Okay.
Lemon Lime Art 1 asks, what's a source of initiative or drive for you guys?
Well, actually, Lemon Lime Art, that's interesting. They're a very, very good friend of mine. Thank you for asking a question, Michaela. I appreciate it.
That's awesome. I guess my source of like motivation behind this is that I want to improve the world in some way. I think everybody should do that with whatever they choose to do. And I've found that because I think I'm good at making music and I like video games, I think I'm able to provide a unique value to people through creating something that I don't think many other people have the ability or knowledge to create, which is video game music, jazz covers. So knowing that I have, a somewhat like exclusive ability, it's not, anybody can learn to do this, but not everybody does. But because I'm fortunate enough to be in this position, I want to take advantage of that and use it to do the best things I can.
Yeah, sure. And I think this is addressed to both of us. So if you're wondering sort of the way I have initiative or drive when it comes to making a cover is, I feel like a lot of, as far as the sort of grand overarching, what am I doing? I love making stuff. I love performing more than I love music. Even though music is one of my favorite things in the world, really, performance is my favorite thing. And just because you're not on stage doesn't necessarily mean that you're not performing. You are, when I sit down and I open up my DAW, and really that's the hardest part as far as just driving yourself to actually complete a project, is just opening the DAW. Opening whatever software or just starting, that's the hardest part. And then when you get that, you have this whole blank canvas to work with. And you take all these tools and skills that you've compiled over the years, and you put them to use, and you craft this thing that you have in your head, and you're able to share it with people. And that is sort of the, as simply as I can put it, that is the thing that makes me want to do YouTube music and just really anything creative at all. Yeah. What other questions we got?
Good answer.
Yeah.
Brendan, I'm going to use their handles. Bean Dip Bro.
Yeah, I have all these written down. So, like, if we can get through these quick enough, we might be able to answer them. So,
say that again?
I was just saying that if we can get through these quickly, because I have them all written down. There's about 20. If we can get through these quickly, we might be able to answer them all. But we'll see what we have time for. So, Bean Dip Bro.
Okay, let's treat this as a lightning round then.
Okay, sure.
Okay, favorite game of the year: Octopath Traveler. Who's your biggest jazz inspiration? Michael Brecker. What's in your mind with your soloing? A lot of things and nothing at the same time.
For me, when I'm soloing, all I hear in my head is shit the whole time.
I think that's actually a ride symbol. What process do you go through in picking songs to cover? Pick songs that I have a personal association with that I think would sound good in my playing. Is there any style of music that you particularly detest? No. Some are better than others.
Yeah.
I think good music is good music and bad music is bad music.
Sure.
I think so. What are your feelings around college level jazz? As long as don't be elitist about it and stay humble and keep practicing. Oh, I lost the tweets.
Oh, you lost it? Oh no.
No, I got it. If you guys had a podcast, what would it be about? Music.
Well, I mean, you have a podcast. If we had a podcast, it would probably be about music. But go check out While We Talk. Is that ever coming back, by the way?
I don't know. Maybe we'll have a reunion episode.
Sure.
I just realized the person who asked before was Duncan, and I met him at Berkeley.
Hey.
Yeah. I'd like to. I kind of want to do a podcast about what it's like making like creating music by yourself.
Sure.
You know, like the things that I've learned being an entirely like multi-instrumentalist single music creation person on YouTube.
Yeah.
I think that'd be kind of cool.
Well, I mean, that's like that's why I started this show. Is it's kind of like a podcast. It's like it's an interview, but that's sort of what I was interested in podcasting stuff. So I'm like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna interview people. Okay, continue.
Yeah, I like podcasts too. They're great.
Definitely.
What have been some of your favorite songs to remix? Anything for Pokemon Diamond and Pearl? What were your original plans for the future with your music skills? I didn't have any plans. I just wanted to. I thought it was fun. Do you feel it's easier to perform well in recording for a cover or playing live? They've both got their own stressful traits. It's easier to perform well when playing live, especially if there are other people. Also when playing live, you only have one shot for a solo. When you're recording the cover, you can take as many as you want, which is curse. I think this is a question for you. How hard is it to make the perfect harmonic balance between the things you do, like the steel guitar and ocarina cover of Oasis that you did as an example?
Yeah, so I guess that is a question for me. I wasn't sure if you had done a cover of a song called Oasis, but
I had not.
That is an Overwatch song. I did a cover of Oasis. It did have ocarina in it, but it actually didn't have steel guitar in it. It was just like standard electric guitar stuff. There was no slide in that song, but that is a really cool idea. It probably could have benefited from that. As far as like, what was the first part of the question about like harmonic?
How is it to make the perfect harmonic balance?
I mean, like the difficulties in that and the process in that, a lot of it for me comes from EQing. Granted, there's a lot of different tones that you can get from recording just various instruments. There's a lot of different flavor in there, but sometimes you want a particular sound or to play a particular instrument and it just doesn't fit together. And almost all of the time that can be solved by using an equalizer. And that's what I do for every single cover. So I hope that answers your question.
I think that's right. What are your favorite instrument-specific techniques? On saxophone, I like false fingerings and what are they called? Multiphonics, which sound like
yes.
That's basically it. What about you with guitar?
Particular techniques that I like. I really don't like think about it too much. I kind of just play the instrument. Like there are certain things that I like throwing in because they're cool, like arpeggiated scales and tapping is fun to do, but I don't really think about, like when I'm making cover, I don't think like, man, this technique is particularly fun. I just play what sounds right, you know?
I'm trying to think of other things that I would like about guitar specifically. I can't think of anything. How do you come up with good arrangement ideas even under the 2-week time constraint? Listen to a lot of music, because then you have a large vocabulary of sounds that you've heard before in your head. And you can draw upon all of that as you need to make something.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's one instrument you want to learn but haven't started to practice with so far? Trumpet.
Trumpet.
Between me and In the Rain bot, who would you pick?
Oh, this is the History of Insanity.
This is the bot conversation.
Yeah.
Well, History of Insanity is actually run by an actual person.
Oh, okay.
Ooh. History of Insanity. Sorry, In the Rain bot.
Ooh. Poor In the Rain bot.
With the VGM community. Everybody is so nice.
Ooh, that's Ro asked that, right?
Yeah. Hey, bro. Everybody's so nice, open, receptive, encouraging. You know, people don't really like say bad things about each other. That doesn't really happen.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Ro, you got to be on the show sometime. I'll hit you up.
Yeah. Can I give my next question to Ro?
Okay. Tell you what. Well, I'll talk about it. Let's get through this and I'll talk to you.
Okay. There's 2 more questions I see.
Okay.
Is it considered cheating if I ask the question here? Yes.
Yes.
Do you like the spaghetti? Yes.
I love spaghetti. Delicious. All right, so that pretty much brings us to the end of the interview. So we'll go ahead and talk about that. So I already have my next interview scheduled. So I'm going to have you ask 2 questions. One to Ro, should he ever be on the show, and one to my next interviewee.
Okay.
So let's start with Ro before I reveal who's going to be on the show next. Ask Ro a question if he's ever on the show. Maybe he'll even answer it in the comments if he sees it, or he'll save it if he does want to be on the show.
I'm going to ask Ro, how dark do you like your toast?
All right, how dark do you like your... Is that an inside joke, or is that just because?
It can be if you want it to be.
Okay, sure. So, everyone, the next person who's going to be on the show is our boy, Josiah Everhart. Are you familiar with him? Yeah,
Yes.
I'm very excited about that because I found him through his covers, but I actually really, really enjoy his original music. We'll talk about his original music on the next interview, but it's fantastic. I'm very excited to have him on the show in a couple weeks. So, what question do you want to ask Josiah when he's on the show?
Would you ever consider voluntarily living on the street in a cardboard box and playing guitar for people who walk by? Because I think you have the capacity to do that.
Yeah, they'll give you tendies. I mean, they'll give you tendies.
That was meant to be nice.
You look like a homeless person. You should try it.
That's not what I'm trying to say. I think he could. I think if he was acting like that, if that was his job to act that role, I think he could do it very well.
All right, sure. Okay, so then what is the most difficult part of the interview, but probably my favorite part of the interview, is at the end of every single interview, I will write or cover a 10-second portion of a song or a 10-second song about whatever you want or of whatever you want. So you can tell me to cover 10 seconds of a particular part of a song, tell me a certain technique, tell me a theme, tell me lyrics. So far, they've been pretty goofy. If you haven't heard the ones I've done so far, Jules requested a cover of a Grant Kirkhope song, but every note you play is accompanied by a minor second. And then Jack requested a smooth jazz seduction version of Megalovania. Both of those 2 are up on my channel. You can find them by the really bad thumbnails. So it can be something in that vein or something completely different. What do you want to hear?
I want to hear a ska version of Giant Steps.
Giant Steps. Okay, I'll have to look that up because I'm actually not familiar with that piece.
Oh, Giant Steps is it's a very hard jazz song. You'll have a fun time learning the chords to it. That's all I'm gonna say.
All right.
But the song, I don't know how long the head is only like 16 bars, but you say 10 seconds.
Yeah, about around 10 seconds.
So you make it as fast, like compress it, speed up the tempo so it fits within 10 seconds.
And play the entire thing.
Yeah, and do a ska version of Giant Steps.
All right, we'll see if I can figure that out.
I think you can do it.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. So you're gonna hear that now. All right, so that definitely brings us to the end of this interview. Why don't you let everyone know before we sign off where they can find you and where they can support you?
You can find everything related to me on youtube.com/Insaneintherainmusic. That's all you need to know.
That's all you need to know. And if you liked what you saw and you want to see more interviews, make sure to subscribe to my channel. I do interviews like this every single month, and I also do covers of my own on a semi-weekly basis. If you want to support the channel, definitely check out my Patreon. There's a lot of cool rewards you can get there. And I'm going to go ahead and end the interview here. I'll see you guys next time with Josiah. Peace out, y'all.
Bye.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show. Later, everyone.